So, Miss Marvel, have you finished it?
Nope.
Well, um, so the show started off strong. Me and you both liked the first episode with the Spider Verse graphic style, with the graffiti being animated in the background, and them being very clever with the text messages. Where in most shows you would just have they them just pop up beside the character. They incorporated them into like the background of like neon signs and street signs like that. It was really cool. But it fell to the six episode curse of these Marvel shows, where a lot of up up toward the like the penultimate episode, there were still a lot of unresolved storylines that they all had to jam pack into the last episode. And ultimately, they didn't even resolve some of them, and then they created new ones and like resolved them immediately. Like that just came out of nowhere. It was very strange. So in that last episode, Kamala says "embiggen" and like forms her purple energy around her and gets like armor and X-Men, and just like that grows rather than her. And it made me so mad because like I said, I don't like that her powers have been changed, and it's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. The reason they're doing it, everyone assumes, is to have her powers more in line with Captain Marvel's and Monica Rambeau's. Whether she goes by Spectrum or Photon, probably Photon because her mother went by Photon, but I prefer Spectrum as a name. Um, do you have a preferred like Monica Rambeau superhero name?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I say, do you have like a preferred Monica Rambeau superhero name, like Photon or Spectrum?
Spectrum.
Yeah, I like Spectrum too. That's my favorite one. Photon's good, and it's probably the one they're gonna use because that's the one her mother went by in the movies. But she could change it to Spectrum at some point if they want. But
I mean, she's currently Spectrum. I feel like they should just go with Spectrum.
yeah, that would make the most sense. But
It would.
speaking of powers, um, Kamala's powers are very, like I said, uninteresting. When it comes to like it's just she's Green Lantern. Green Lanterns are cool. They can be creative, but her powers seemingly don't allow her to be super creative with the forms that she makes. She can only stretch her limbs or make her energy bigger around her, or like make platforms for her to step on or shields and stuff like that. So that so you made her a Green Lantern just to remove all the cool stuff about being a Green Lantern, which is very strange. Whereas with her original powers, she doesn't just stretch; she adds mass to her body, and she can shapeshift, and she can heal in some ways. She has a bit of a healing factor because of that, and they were just real cool. But they also tie into the ultimate like the arc she goes through in that first like volume of her comic, those first few couple issues, and it's essentially a phrase I hear thrown around a lot on Twitter mostly is the show focuses way excuse me focuses way more on what she is rather than who she is. And there's this quote by this person on Twitter whose ad is the ginger beard that I'm gonna just read because I feel like they say it better than I could. And they say that the comics at the very least make her identity a central theme. But she's three dimensional. She's a nerd, fanfic writer, a fangirl, and an MMO player, and feels alienated from her family and her peers, and learns to accept herself through her strange new powers. The show has none of that. Kamala is a fangirl. That's it. She doesn't convey feeling of alienation. Her powers are shiny and easily accessible. She has no internal struggle to deal with. All of her problems are external. There's no substance. It's dull. Essentially, kind of superficial. Like in the show, in the comics, she's struggling with being a brown girl in America, and being Muslim, and while also being different from her Muslim and brown family, and to the point to where she shapeshifts herself to look like the original Miss Marvel. She makes her skin lighter and she makes her hair blonde, and that's a big character arc for her to accept who she is and how different she is. And that just isn't a thing in the show. And instead, they just focus on let's figure out where her powers come from. Let's introduce these characters that are genies. Which, by the way, a lot of Muslim people just aren't don't like that. A lot of Pakistani people don't like that because associating their first big live action superhero character with genies is very stereotypical to them. And we should of course listen to the people who's who's being represented. And yeah, there was something else I was gonna say. I can't remember. Oh, her powers. So they set up that this is all about what is she? Why does she have these powers? And they introduce the Jinn, and they're trying to get back to their original universe. And ultimately, it gives a lot of focus on her grandmother Aisha or Aisha, um, than her herself, to the point to where there's an entire episode of Mirror where she that's essentially a flashback of Aisha, which makes sense. You figured we were gonna learn about her eventually. Um, and then it turns out Kamala like goes back in time, and she's the one that saved her grandmother with the Trail of Stars. It was very strange and confusing, and they never explain it because they don't explain where her powers come from, and they just go, she's a mutant out of nowhere. Just, oh, she's a mutant. She's not an inhuman. We hate inhumans. That's why we killed Black Bolt. She's a mutant. It's strange. To the point to where they actually play a small portion of the 97 X-Men theme that I didn't notice until on Twitter somebody screenshotted the credits, and in the credits in the music part it says 97 X-Men theme. So she's a mutant 100%. And it's weird. Like Kevin Feige must really not like Inhumans or because of that show. Like he must really be burned by that. Um, but there's things I like about the show, and the something I really liked in that last episode was how she got her superhero name, Miss Marvel. So apparently, her father tells her that Kamala means Marvel, and he calls her in Urdu, and he calls her, his little Miss Marvel. And then she's happy her name happens to she happens to share a name with Carol Danvers, her superhero name, and now she's probably gonna go by Miss Marvel. And at the very end, I say probably, like the show wasn't called Miss Marvel. And then at the very end, in the end credits, they she kind of like teleports away, and then Captain Marvel teleports in Carol Danvers and like crashes into her closet and stands up like really confused, and she has a new dope costume that I'll put an image of up on screen. I really like it. I hope it's the costume she wears in the Marvels, the movie. And yeah, um, I'm interested to see where they go with this character. I like the actress who plays her. She does a good job. The powers are weird. There's nothing saying that she can't eventually get old her original powers at some point. They could easily make that change at some point. But I'm tired of superhero movies feeling the need to make the character that we know and love only after like a trilogy like Spider-Man. But anyway, it was an okay show. It was just kind of started off strong and got real disappointing real fast.